Hey everybody, welcome back. Hey everybody, this is April's Reads and May's TBR. So last week was the pain, so I didn't get to upload my reads for April or my May TBR, but here we are today. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell you the books that I will read in May, since we are already in May. So the first one that I got to pick from my 2023 TBR jar was Oliver Twist. I didn't get a chance to read it. It's super short, so hopefully I'll get to read it this time. And then the next one that I got from my 2023 hauls that I didn't read was Is Everybody Hanging Out With Me Without Me from Indicating. So these two are gonna be part of my TBR that comes from the jar. Now, for this month is Asian and Asian Pacific Heritage Month in the US, so that's the theme that I picked. Remember that in this channel we try to read diversely, and by following those commemorative months is the easiest way to find new authors and new stories. So all of these are either Asian authors or Asian stories or Asian Pacific. Okay, so the first book that I actually already read, and I can give you a preview, or I can give you what I already thought of it, was Poyen, which stands by Your Name, a novel. And this is about parasocial dynamics and relationship with fans and artists, and fan fiction, and pretty much fan obsession. I honestly gave it 2 stars. I didn't quite like it. I wasn't sure what the topic was, or the dynamic was, or the intent of the book was. In my case, I thought that it was just gonna explore a little bit of fan fiction, or how someone becomes a person who would write fan fiction because of the YA where you insert your name. However, it clearly, for me, it was about an obsessive fan, someone who takes those parasocial relationships to an obsessive level, and obviously concerning mental health issues, probably from that particular main character, should be addressed. And that's the problem. They don't. I feel like they engage in obsessive and dangerous behaviors, and it really doesn't specify. At the end, I thought, well, maybe this was like a dystopian because of something that happens at the end. I thought maybe this is like a dystopian book, but it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like a mental health awareness thing. It doesn't feel like quite a parasocial thing. Also, it feels like up the level of a fan or fandom or fan fiction and parasocial, bow down a level, really talking about dystopian. And I think that it was really to the detriment of any of those topics. I feel like now with social media, with everybody having a phone, with nobody even being able to go have a decent meal without someone taking a picture or recording them, artists are really under a microscope. And I think it's really honestly abusive and insensitive, and more laws should be made against it, because those people are sharing like minimal things about their life, like their art, their, whether it's music or painting or movies or whatever it is. It's a very small part of who they are. It's not all of what they are. However, they are turned into these things to be consumed and to be picked apart, when they are the ones creating the art. And you should be able to criticize the art and pick apart the art and have any opinion on the art itself. But when you do that to regular people, like, that's insane. And even people who aren't even artists are suffering like under the same thing. And I know people are gonna be like, people always like to equate like decency, or treat people decency with the amount of money that they have. Like, if they are rich and billionaires, then you're allowed to treat them wrongly. Like, why is that? So that's something else that could have been explored. It wasn't my favorite. I think they could have done a lot more with that book. But I'm glad I read it, because a lot of people are reading it. And obviously, or not obviously, but I'm not also in that world of fan fiction, or in the world of Korean pop, which is really much what they explore. So maybe I missed the mark somewhere around there. So anyway, that was YN, a novel by Esther Yi, and I gave it 2 stars. The next book that I picked for the month was The Three Body Problems by Cixin Liu. This is a Netflix series, obviously based on the series of novels, and I want to read it. I really like the series on Netflix. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm really interested in reading the book, so I picked that one. The next one is Severance by Ling Ma, and this is a story about a millennial woman who is living through an apocalypse, and she pretty much decides to just keep on going with her regular life, watching movies with her boyfriend in the basement, going shopping, going to work, doing different things. So yeah, pretty much every millennial who is burned out can relate, I think, to this book. So I'm interested to see what they have to say. The next one is a book that everybody already knows, but I'm a little late to the party. It's Yellowface by R.F. Kwan. This is a book about criticizing the publishing industry and maybe cultural appropriation and different things like that. Interested to read this book. I already read Babel and I loved that one, but that was a fantasy, pretty different. So we'll see what this one is about. The next one that I picked is called Dawn Raid by Pauline Valiaga Smith. And this is about a young 12-year-old girl who is really much learning to have her own voice and make her own stance when her parents decide to become members of the Polynesian Panthers. The other one that I picked is No Country for Eight-Spot Butterflies, and this is by Julian Awon. And this is a memoir. This is like a memoir or a statement from the author, who is an activist and who is constantly fighting for indigenous rights in Guam and fighting against climate change and different things like that. So I think that's a very interesting book to read. And then the last one that I picked for Asian Pacific Islander Month is Dragon Fruit, which is a fantasy. This is by Mikael Lucier, and this is about world where the sea dragon, whenever they produce an egg, is called a dragon fruit, and how this dragon fruit can grant wishes or desires, but how every time you have a wish, it always comes at a price, and I don't know what the price is gonna be, but it sounds very interesting, and the cover is beautiful. Those are the books that I'm planning on reading in May, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna confess, if I have time, I have saved on my library of audiobooks the Bridgerton book, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I know that it's the series is coming on Netflix on the 16th, so I have about 10 days to listen to it. Actually, I'm gonna be able to access my books until the 9th, so I'm gonna have about 7 days to listen to it, and hopefully I like it. I know those books aren't great. I have watched tons of videos of people reading the books and criticizing the books, but I thought I wanted just a little bit more of the Penelope storyline just before I watch the season. So if I have a chance, I'm gonna listen to that one. Okay. Now on to my April reads. So in April, I was able to read 10 books. The first one being 1000 Nights and One Night. This is an anonymous work. It was translated by Sir Richard Burton. And this one is the story of a sultan who catches his wife cheating. So he kills her and decides never to marry again. But once he's with his brother, he comes out with a better idea. What if I do marry, but marry every night, and I kill my wife before the morning, and then I get a new wife the next day, and so on and so forth, until he gets to a town where everybody already knows about the sultan, and this girl Sherazad decides to volunteer herself as tribute so that no one else in the village has to be sacrificed. However, on the night of the wedding, she asked the sultan if she can invite her sister to tell him a story before bed. And then every night they are so captivated by Sherazad and the sister's storytelling that he decides to let them live like another day and another day and another day. In each and each of the stories that they're telling, we are listening to it as we read the book. So this is a very long book with a lot of volumes. I was only able to get through the first volume, which is about 20 something hours, so it's like a full novel, but it's super interesting, and I am interested in finishing it all in my lifetime sometime. And I gave this one 4 stars. The next book was Bird of the Sea by Quora Eman, and I gave this one 4 stars. In this one, we are following the story of a couple who is from, I believe they're from the Emirates, but I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But they decide to move to the US. Once they move to the US, they have a kid and they see that they're not happy, so they decide to divorce. Now they're really modern, based on their culture. However, they're still accepted and loved and all that, and supported. However, once they decide to divorce, the woman kind of has this fear that if she stays there, if her daughter keeps having contact with her father, eventually he will take her back to the Emirates, and she will never see them again. So she decides to take the daughter, kidnap her, and move around the US, protecting her. The father, he is looking for them, however, in a very passive way. So really the story is about the relationship with the culture, the relationship with the family, because they're the ones that are really pushing for him to find the girl and to also bring her, and kind of fulfill this fear that the mother has. But also he wants, although he respects and he wants to honor tradition, he also understands the ways of the modern world and how she should be with the mom, but he also misses her. So it's very complex story. And also the daughter has a complicated story with both of them, because she understands that her mother protected her, but also she kept her from the father. So we see her grow up this way, and we see her kind of navigating through all that once the father does find her when she's an older teenager. So that was Bird of the Sea, and I gave it 4 stars. The next one that I read was If an Egyptian Can Speak English. I also gave this one 4 stars, but this one was a little bit more complex. As I was reading it, it is a dual POV from both a man and a woman who are in a relationship, who are from very different cultural, socio-economic stance, and just their views on the world are very different. He was part of the revolutionary. He was part of the revolution in Egypt. He is very. His view of the world is very indicative of that. And he also is suffering from substance abuse, and he tells us how he got there. And she is a rich New Yorker that is wanting to have a adventure or a trip or learn more about her homeland, and how these worlds don't really go well together. As I was listening to it, honestly, I almost DNF'd it because I felt at parts it was very vulgar, it was very raw, it wasn't really the style of writing that I like. However, I soon realized that that was exactly how I was supposed to be feeling, because that is being told by his side of the story. So like I said, it's dual POV. So sometimes the male is narrating and sometimes the female. But also when she was speaking, I found her a little bit elitist and narcissistic and not really in touch with the real world that she chose to be a part of. So that was a little bit weird. And then at a certain part of the book, all of my doubts, all of those things that I was thinking, I kind of got called out on it, and I thought it was brilliant that they did that, but also left me a bit more confused. So I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I don't think it's gonna be for everyone, and I think it might require like another read to really get fully in. So yeah, that was If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English, and I gave it 4 stars. The next one was You Exist Too Much by Arafat Saina, and honestly, that's exactly how I felt about this main character. I feel bad saying it because she receives that particular criticism by her mother, who is not supportive of her lifestyle or of her the way she simply is, because she is part of the LGBTQ community. And her mother is not supportive. She's very traditional. She wants her to get married, to have babies, to follow the traditional religious ways that she was raised in. But she doesn't. However, the main character is kind of like a bulldozer. She goes through life kind of wrecking other people. And I wasn't sure if that being the title of the book and her mom saying that to her in a critical moment, in a criticizing way, was to make us feel like she had an excuse to do all that she did. But if you're a full adult, you don't have an excuse to do anything. If you are not repairing or treating people with respect, or not consciously trying to damage people, that should be a sign of your maturity, your level of development, different things. And that character, I felt like she wasn't. She was just kind of taking all of her anger out to other people, and I don't think that's fair. And I did think that that was too much at some point. So anyways, that was You Exist Too Much by Arafat Saimna, and I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I give this one 5 stars. I've said it before, this is a beautiful book where a prophet is living in a town, and the people of the town simply gathers around him and says, can you tell us please more about death, about money, about relationships, about parenthood? And he offers advice on these various topics, very, I think, important life advice that you can follow, no matter what religion, no matter what your beliefs are. And I think it's a beautiful book to bring you solace whenever you're going through a difficult time. So this was a reread, and I really liked it, and I gave it 5 stars. Okay, the next book that I read was A Map of Salt and Stars by Yakutar Singh. And this book, it's a dual POV again. One is sort of like a fantasy POV about a woman warrior who pretends to be a man to go on this ship to create maps of the world and to fight, obviously, creatures and different things. And then the other POV is for a American girl who moves to Syria with her family, her sisters and her mother, after her father passed away. So they're all from Syria. She was the only one who was born in the US. They all lived there. When the father dies, they all go back to Syria, and a few months later, the war in Syria breaks out, and they have to survive and try to go to safety. It tells the journey of someone in their economic status, in their socioeconomic status, because they have access to a vehicle, they have access to travel to different places, and they have documents that they can show different embassies. So they might get a refugee visa given to them so they can go ahead and be safe in the US again. However, I found that this main story of the girl who's named Noor was very watered down by the story that we were following this fantasy legend area, because obviously that has a point. It has a parallel to the mother, who is also a map maker, and to the girl who is kind of like a warrior. However, that story could have been told in a chapter as a story that maybe the mother or someone else is telling her, and then we can see the parallels. But because every chapter kind of goes back and forth, whenever we were hearing Noor's anguish over the Syrian war, and they're moving around and they're trying to go to safety, whenever that got too deep, you would kind of cut into the other story, and it made this story less impactful. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. I think it's still 3 stars. I still think it's a very important book to read, a very important story to tell. I just wish it would have been like two different books. The next one that I read was The Stardust Thief, and this is a series. This is book 1 and of the Sandseed trilogy. This is by Abdullah Chelsea, and I gave this one 3 stars. I also like this one a lot. This is kind of like an Aladdin retelling. This is about a girl who is a thief, who is hired by the Sultan to find an artifact that will give the Sultan access to the most powerful genie. Um, and then you learn a lot of things about the world, the lore. I think the world building was great. I would think the lore was great. The story of all of the characters was great. However, I felt like there were too many characters. I know it's a fantasy and I know it's long, but I still feel like there were too many characters to follow, and one of them really kind of lost me a little bit. And whenever I thought the story already ended, because we still needed to find like an ending for the other characters, it felt like really long. I remember still having like 2 hours left and thinking, what else could you possibly tell us? So I think instead of being a trilogy, it could have been maybe 4 or 5 books, or simply a trilogy with one character, and then maybe another story for another character. Okay, and again, that was the Stardust Thief, and I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read is Learning America. When Women Fight for Education, Justice for Refugee Children. This is by Mufle Luma, and this is a story about a woman who was also considered a refugee. She did move from Iran to the US for college, and then she stayed there. And she's a soccer player, and she is part of the LGBTQ community, and she does a lot of good for her community. But one day she discovers that kids are playing soccer nearby where she coaches another team, and she realized that they were refugee children, that they don't have the right equipment, the right training, anything. So she decides to create a team with them and help them out, and soon becomes kind of like a mentor in all of their lives, not only getting them through school, but through sports, putting them in teams, telling them how to follow the rules when it comes to social activities in the US, but also when it comes to the sport and the school, and how to help their families. And because this is a kind of like a memoir, we hear like real life stories of people, and the one that was particularly impactful is about this mother and her children, and how by the time she got refugee status and then she flew to the US, she already was like $30,000 in debt, because the refugee status doesn't cover like the flights and all of that. So even before she had a home or a job, she already owed the government a lot of money. And how can you start fresh and new and with opportunities when you're already kind of starting with a pebble on your shoe, honestly? Because what else would you call like being $30,000 in debt in a country you just got to? So it was really difficult for them to kind of move forward. And how she notices that the education plans for refugee children are also really bad. Some of them can read or write, and they just keep passing them grade through grade because it's easier for the system. So she really gets involved in education for them. So I think that's a really important book, important work, important facts that we need to know, not only or if you're in the US, for the US, but also in every country where we get a lot of immigrants. Here in Mexico, there's no surprise. Every border town, every border city is filled with immigrants and refugees from all over the world. And how are we helping them? Not only by handing them a meal or clothes or whatever, but also in their future, in their giving them tools to succeed on their own. So I think that's very important. It's a very important book to read. Okay, the next book that I read was The Winds in the Willows by Graham Kenneth. I gave it 3 stars, and I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny. I thought it was a cute story. But if you're looking for cozy fantasy, this ain't it. I know there's a lot of cutesy woodland animals, but some of them are vicious. The toad is crazy. He's a criminal. He's in jail. So some of the friends are a little bit selfish. There's a movie, a cartoon, where the badger, I think, sings, "I hate company," and we always make a joke that that's me because I'm such a loner. And after reading this book, I'm thinking, if I were the badger, I would hate company too. Now I want the t-shirt more than ever, because like those people were nuts. Like the friendships were one-sided sometimes, very selfish. Like I said, Toad would just crazy all over the place. So yeah, I like that. I'm glad that I read it. These are all adventures of. Are we supposed to take something from it? I'm not sure if that was the point, or simply read like crazy adventures of a bunch of friends who happen to be animals. But I mean, I guess it was kind of fun. So that was The Winds and the Willows, and I gave it 3 stars. And then the last one that I listened to, it's actually like a graduation speech from Neil Gaiman. It's called Art Matters Because Your Imagination Can Change the World. And I really liked it because it's really about, and now at the end when I realized that it was like a graduation speech, it's you can tell that all of the things that he was saying is to impulse was to encourage people to really use their imagination, be successful, be unafraid, take risk, create new things. So that was really cool. I think that if you're in any creative field, this little read, it's only like an hour long. It's really important and it's really motivating if you're losing kind of the wind in your wings, kind of sort of thing. I think it's really nice to listen to it and maybe get motivated again and start again. So that was Art Matters by Neil Gaiman, and I gave it 5 stars. So yeah, those were all my reads for April and the plans that I have for May. Tell me please, what are you planning on reading for May? Are you going by theme? Are you going by mood? Let me know which books are you reading. If you have read any book by Asian Pacific Islander, either authors or stories, and you want to recommend them, please let me know right there in the comments. Remember that down in the description, all of my links will be available for social media. Also, all the ways that you can help this channel and support this adventure, that would really help a lot. Remember to like this video if you like my recommendations and my thoughts on books. To subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and to ring that bell to get notifications. And remember to always keep reading and keep blooming, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!